Yeah, the eyes of the Lord are in every place. I'm going to start by giving all honor, all praise, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai Ba'ashem, Rechak Wadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. As always, peace, blessings, and salutations to the tabernacle of David, the four elect, scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. And I just want to, do a quick little video. I saw this posted. This is supposed to be in Pennsylvania, where a woman, she filmed a chariot and she zoomed, pretty close. I'm pretty sure, she was left scratching her head. And most people, when they, see these type of phenomenons, they try to guess at what it could possibly be. Leave them a bit puzzled as to what they're seeing. It's a spirit too, because I want to say, was it last camp? This past Sunday, we was out there teaching and we was edifying some Jake that came by, and he stayed for a cool minute too. Like it seemed like he was being fed, but we'll see if Jake ever comes back. But it was a pretty good camp, and as we was teaching, I think it was 2 chariots that showed up. Brothers happened to be looking, across, and they looked up and spotted 2 chariots, just up there chilling. One of them actually moved and he looked like he was a bit closer. And the other one was just up above and it didn't move. It was just right there. And, make sure that it was, it was in our presence, right before us. We just kept teaching, like, hey, this is nothing new to us. Let's keep on pushing. But this woman, this had to have been like a $1,000-$2,000 camera that she used, because it had some good zoom. So I'm gonna play the video real quick, so y'all can see it. You'll get to literally see it up close. Okay, there's clearly an angel up there. Let's take a peek.
See if I can zoom in more. I know I can, but my fingers don't work. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Let's see if I can zoom in. That's kind of cool. Can you talk to me?
No,
Can you hear me?
You don't want that angel to talk to you. All right. If only did they know what their purpose is and what they're eventually going to come to do. But it's interesting, seeing it up close and then knowing what the scriptures describe, when discussing or breaking down what they actually are. A lot of people still can't identify what they are. And that's why it's a blessing to be in this truth, to understand all things, man. All right, let's just a little, a few more seconds.
Jesus loves me.
Yep. So she one of those Jesus freaks, Christian Jesus freaks. Hey, yeah, the world is been under that spell for quite some time, but she gonna eventually get to know the true name at some point. Whether it's she come back on the other side, and if she's an Edomite, she's gonna know. But if she come back on the other side, it ain't gonna be the JC that she knew. All right, she gonna meet the Lord that said, "He that endureth to the end, the same will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And they shall be beaten to shivers, as a potter's a vessel is broken." So she don't know that Messiah, all right, which is who we know as Yahushua HaMashiach, all right, and he's actually coming back on an object like that, but it ain't gonna be that little, okay. You read 2nd Ezra 13. Ezra he saw the Lord fly in on a chariot, and he described it as being a mountain. So it was a massive chariot. So yeah, they gonna find out eventually when the Lord pops up like a thief in the night.
Oh, you know Jesus. You know Jesus. Jesus is awesome, isn't he? Yes, he is. God is good.
Yeah, she's talking about a whole nother. Yeah, Christianity is man. Anyway, so y'all got to see the video, and a couple scriptures popped to my mind as I was looking at it. The first one being the one in Ezekiel, when Ezekiel had that encounter with a chariot. What he saw. He actually saw 4 angels, and he saw the chariots. This is Ezekiel 1:1. I'm not going to read the whole chapter. I'm going to just read the points that are relevant. It's Ezekiel 1:1. It says, "Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Kabar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of the power. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiachin's captivity," it was Babylonian captivity. It says, "The word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans, by the river Kabar, and the hand of the Lord was there upon him. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself." So it was like a ball of light, like a fireball. Okay. And that fire is because of the glory that is, that glows around, these beings, the angel and the chariot, because they were not made on earth. They come from the heavens. So they're celestial. It says, and a brightness was about it. And that's what she was seeing. All right. It was flowing in brightness like a light. Okay. You look up close, and it's just a dazzling light. Yep. And it says, and a brightness was about it. She was able to, zoom in and get a close up through the camera. Now, if she actually was face to face with that thing, she disintegrate, because it would actually be too much brightness. Okay. You would have to be in celestial form to, get up in there. It says, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. All right. And I just looked up the color of amber, and what it appears And this is the color. Okay. And that's the exact color that you see here. I mean, this is a bit more like a lighter, brighter version of it, but it's the same color. So that's what they look like up close. Okay. So that was the color that he used to describe the brightness, the bright amber color. So that's what Ezekiel saw. You know, he was very descriptive. And then he also talks about the four creatures, right? Ezekiel 1:5, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, you know, so they can appear like men, you know, easily. All right, the angels, you know, they can appear like men or they can show up like creatures. You know, they can do it all. It says, and everyone had four faces, and everyone had four wings, and their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet like the sole of a cow's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. You know, the same color that John, when he was on the Isle of Patmos, and he saw a vision of the Lord. You know, he was looking down at his feet, and that was the same color that he saw. You know, so, you know, these would be they would be described as men of color, but in celestial form. Okay, dark skin. And it says, and they had the hands of a man under their wings on their four sides, and they four had their faces in their wings. Their wings were joined one to another. They turned not when they went everyone straight forward. Okay. And I'll just read down to like maybe 13, 14. It says, as the likeness of their faces, they had the face of a man. All right, so they can have the appearance of a man. All right, but it's also describing, you know, comparisons to, you know, certain things that describes their abilities. It says in the face of a lion, right? You know, lion is known for being courageous, right? On the right side, and they four had the face of an ox on the left side. You know, we know an ox is known for its strength. And it even tells you that the angels, when you go to Psalm 103, Psalm 103 and 20, it says, bless the Lord, ye his angels that excel in strength. You know, the oxes are known for being, you know, very, very strong. Okay. They use oxes in agriculture. They use for plowing. Yeah, oxen are used for plowing, for transport, pulling carts, hauling wagons, and even riding, for threshing grain by trampling, or for powering machines. That takes a lot of strength to do. Okay. And then it says, that do his commandments, hearken unto the voice of his word, because the angels, they all follow the instructions of the Almighty. Bless ye the Lord, all you his hosts, you ministers of his that do his pleasure. And the angels are ministers too. And that's why when John was going to bow down to that angel that he saw, the angel told him to get up, you know, and told him that, you know, he was his brother and that he was a servant. Was that Revelation 19 and 10? Yeah, Revelation 19 and 10. And then I fell at his feet to worship him. You know, so this was the angel. It says, and he said unto me, see, thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and of thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushai. Worship the Most High, for the testimony of Yahushai is the spirit of prophecy. All right, so he said that I'm of the brethren and I'm a fellow servant. All right. So that's what they, that's the purpose that they serve is, they serve the Most High. And then also, for the elect, they also are there to, guide the elect, watch over them, protect them. All right. And it says, and they four also had the face of an eagle. All right. They have the eye vision. They can see, very well, see close, see in all directions. Very swift. It says, thus were their faces and their wings were stretched upward. 2 wings of every one were joined one to another, and the 2 covered their bodies. And they went every one straight forward, whether the spirit was to go. And they went, and they turned not when they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of lamps. It went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. All right. So it's just describing the brightness and the glory of their presence, because they're ministering spirits, flames of fires. All right, hovering up above, miles away. Okay. So I don't think she realized, or maybe she do, I don't know. She's mentioning that J word. They don't speak that. the beings in there, they don't speak that language. Okay. They don't know who JC is. They know who Yahushai is. All right. They know that name. So yeah, like I said, I'm not going to make this a long video, but I had to go into this. And hey, the Lord, when he shows up, he's pulling up with, a host of them, with the thousands and thousands from heaven. Okay. And you're not going to be taught, this woman all calm and, because she got a good view and she knows she's about to upload this to the internet. You ain't going to be talking to them when they show up. All right, you're going to be in terrible fear like everybody else. Men's heart failing them for fear. That's what's going to happen. You're gonna tremble in the Lord's presence. And he ain't gonna talk with nobody, man. He said he's gonna plead with all flesh. All right, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. Let's get that in was it Isaiah? And it also tells you in Revelation 1, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and including they which pierced him, and the earth shall wail because of him. So you ain't gonna be, it ain't gonna be your friendly encounter. I'm gonna just say that. It's not gonna be nothing friendly about the Lord's appearance. Isaiah 66:15, it says, for behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind. All right, like Ezekiel described, lo, it's like to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. Especially if you an Edomite, it's up for you. All right, read Isaiah the 63rd chapter. Okay. And you happen to be in power, the last ruling nation on earth, when the Lord shows up, you're going to be still in power, causing all this mayhem, all this chaos, all these wars in the earth, all this perverseness or immorality. So you ain't got to worry about the Lord talking to you and you talking like that. That's not going to happen. All right, people ain't gonna be having their cameras out and zooming in like it's just, some phenomenon, and you can just get your internet moment. All right. So anyway, I just want to do a response to this, and hopefully y'all were edified. We give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Until the next one, Shalom.